Here, the question is again asking us, what is the writer raising concern about? So, if it is a concern that the writer is raising, then we must be looking for something negative, something problematic, something that is worried about. When we start to read the paragraph, we see we have not yet crossed a threshold where the COVID-19 virus has died out or our immunity has risen to a level of preventing infections. So we have not reached that level. Instead, we are focused on recovery while navigating continued pandemic risks, often without the national and international guidance that was present during this. So basically, here they are saying that, listen, we have not yet gotten rid of the COVID-19 virus completely because it has not died out yet. And our immunity also has not increased to this much that it can prevent any sorts of infections. But instead, right now, what we are focusing on is not on eliminating COVID-19 or, I don't know, raising our immunity levels, but instead, we are focusing on our recovery journey. But at the same time, while we are recovering, we are doing so without actually any appropriate guidance from the people that are supposed to give us guidance, because during the COVID-19 pandemic acute phase, we at least had guidance. But here, we are doing it without the national and international guidance that was present during that time and with the continued pandemic risks. So, here the writer is trying to make this point. We should be focused on that, but we're focused on this. And this also, not so much. We are not doing a good job at our recovery also because we don't have the guidance part. So, here I see a problem, a concern that the writer has highlighted that we are doing it often without the guidance thing. So, I'm just going to mark it here. Now, this means, so they are giving more information about the same idea here. This means that at individual and community level, people are being left once again without clear guidance or support in infection prevention that is going to happen during the recovery. So they are essentially talking about the recovery phase and during which how we don't have the same guidelines that we had during the acute phase of COVID-19. Two times the writer had made the same point. Now, this again, this again. Do you notice these words? These things are talking about the previous thing which has been mentioned here, this one that we have talked about, right? So, this is especially this being left without guidance part is really dangerous. We have something that is highlighting this is especially dangerous for people who are clinically vulnerable and are at increased risk of COVID-19 infections and reinfections. This without the guidance thing is problematic for these people. Then millions of people globally are experiencing the long-term effects of COVID-19 and are also at risk of worsening health after reinfection. All of this talks about after you have gotten COVID-19. So many already struggle to obtain care and support. New cases of COVID-19 occur every day, with many developing into long COVID, especially as reinfections. Do you notice how we keep on saying the word reinfection and reinfection again and again? Because reinfections is COVID-19 infection happening again, which happens during the recovery phase. May increase the risk of persistent symptoms. We need to So here the writer is saying, making a point that we need to begin the pandemic recovery process, but we need to do so while continuing to effectively communicate, protect, and care for everyone, because this is the part that we are lacking and we need to do something about it, right? But here they've highlighted this as a problem, and then they have highlighted how many people, again and again, they're just making the point that, listen, we do not have enough guidance right now for the recovery phase that we have from COVID-19. We should be having that guidance, yes, but we don't have it. What does it mean that we don't have the guidance? It means that certain people, for example, here they have mentioned which particular people, that it is really, really dangerous for clinically vulnerable people or people who are at risk of developing the COVID-19 infections or any kind of reinfections. This is really dangerous for these people. Now, If we are talking about these people, then these people are all over the world because globally, COVID 19 cases are happening. Long term effects of COVID 19 are also putting these people at risk. They are worsening their health after the infection, which is making them clinically vulnerable at an increased risk of infection and reinfection. They go on to talk about this thing here again and again and again in detail, but this is essentially the idea. Now, the writer raises the concern about the recovery process. They have, yes, we have seen the recovery process here multiple times. And this is essentially the recovery process after long term COVID 19 reinfections. Hmm. This is very clever. I liked answer option A, which talked about the recovery process here, which is correct according to the paragraph. We are worried about the recovery, but we are worried about it without any appropriate guidance. We're not especially worried about it because of the after COVID 19 reinfections. Notice the difference. The recovery process from COVID 19 is different from the recovery process which happens after you have gotten COVID 19 plus the reinfections of COVID 19 have already happened. When we are showing our concern regarding the recovery process, we are showing how reinfections or infections can happen during this recovery phase. Here, they are mentioning that the infections have already happened, the reinfections have already happened, and now we are worried about the recovery phase. It does not make sense. So, this I know is using the words to make sense of an answer option, which shouldn't make sense according to the paragraphs. This is definitely wrong. This answer option does make a little bit of sense because we are talking about how people struggle to obtain care and support. And then they are talking about inadequate healthcare services for COVID 19 patients. Now, my only problem here between these two is that here they mention that we do not have enough healthcare services. When we say inadequate, we mean that we do not have enough healthcare services. But here we are saying that people struggle to obtain care and support. Could it mean the same thing as me saying it could be a problem with accessibility when they say struggle to obtain care and support, but it could also mean that they struggle to obtain care and support because there isn't enough or there aren't sufficient care services for these patients. But then once again, it's a little detail that I'm noticing here in between the same idea that was mentioned here early on. So I'm not very much keen on this answer option, but I might end up just choosing it to be the right answer if I don't have a better answer option. But in any case, I don't have any problem with the remaining part of this paragraph, with this answer option. Let's look at C. So the insufficient measures, so multiple things, not just one thing, measures to address the needs of certain groups. To address the needs of certain groups. Here, if I have to talk about this answer option C, I would need to talk about the insufficient measures. Can I justify insufficient measures? I think I can because here they are saying that we need to do something, but we are rather focused on recovery while navigating continued pandemic risks. And then they have mentioned that this we are doing without the national international guidance that was present. So this is one measure that is not being given to us. This is the same thing they have talked about again. And these are the groups of people, clinically vulnerable people, people who are at an increased risk of COVID 19 infections, people who are at an increased risk of reinfection. So these are the certain groups of people who need these measures. But here I have only noticed one measure. Another measure is just this thing, obtaining to basically getting the care and support that they need here. That's it. So the insufficient measures, writer is concerned about the insufficient measures to address the needs of certain groups. I'm more happy with certain groups. Insufficient measures, I can think that because here they are saying we need to begin the pandemic recovery process, but we need to do so while doing this. So right now we don't have these efforts. So I'm going to keep it. And then D answer option says the severe long-term effects of COVID-19. Although the severe long-term effects of COVID-19 have been mentioned multiple times, we're not necessarily concerned that we will have reinfections. We are more focused on that, on the fact that we are going to have reinfections or infections or worsening health after reinfection when we are not given proper guidance to manage these things. These are happening, these are going to happen because we are not being given appropriate support that we need during this time. And who are we? Well, the people who are at risk of getting these infections, who are at risk of getting these reinfections, people who are clinically vulnerable. And also, I can still understand why they would use the term severe. So it would be very difficult for any student to kind of select an answer option from this question. But I can definitely think that answer option D is not the main thing that the writer is concerned about. It's just a sideline. The writer is mainly concerned about, well, insufficient measures here. Because healthcare services, even though it makes much more sense for me to choose answer option B, I want you to notice healthcare services are not guidelines. These are certainly these, yes, but this is not the only thing the writer is concerned about. Remember, the writer is making the main point here, and then this is a small detail of that point, which I am considering here. When I use answer option C, insufficient measures actually is covering all of this. But here, healthcare services only covers one aspect of the concern that we have here. So, which is why I am going to eliminate B answer option and I am going to choose answer option C to be the right answer.